Hello and welcome to the Panasas webinar presentation on Fastest in Hollywood, why ActiveStor with DirectFlow for Mac became a hit at NAB 2017. We're going to begin the webinar session here by sharing with you our agenda and going through a scenario that's going to be shared by our guest speaker, who's going to discuss his experience of working with Panasas ActiveStor technology and when he had his Fastest in Hollywood moment. So first, I'd like to cover the agenda and things we're going to be talking about today. First, we're going to introduce our speakers, and we're going to follow that with the voice of the customer. We'll hear from our guest speaker, who is going to share the benefits of Panasas ActiveStor as he experienced it in a media and entertainment environment. He's going to then share the story of the Panasas DirectFlow for Mac experience, which led to the tagline Fastest in Hollywood. Then I will deliver a technology review of ActiveStor with DirectFlow for Mac, and we will take questions at the end. So let me start by introducing our speakers. Our guest speaker is Alan Dial. He's the Senior Vice President of Picture and Post at Ugly Brother Studios, and I'll be transitioning to Alan to be able to share his experiences shortly. My name is David Salick. I am the VP and CTO for Media and Entertainment at Panasas, your host. So first, I thought I'd share a quote that was something that our guest speaker encountered as a matter of researching Panasas, which is our history as a company. We've been servicing a market that tackles very large computational problems, and it takes a lot of performance to do that. So over the past 10 years, one of our customers has changed their compute platforms 5 times, and we've been the constant as the storage platform. So one of the things that Panasas does is if you fly in a major commercial jet, then Panasas has been a part of designing that product in order to be able to sustain the endurance and stability and reliability of air travel in a commercial experience way for more than 10 years. And they use high performance technology to do it. Panasas must be a very interesting product to look at. And it led actually to our next quote, which comes from our guest speaker, Alan Dial. So I'd like to hand off at this point to our guest speaker so that he can start to explain, first of all, this quote that he has and tell his story. So Alan Dial, I hand off to you.
Thanks, David. Hi, everybody. As stated, I'm Alan Dial. I'm the SVP Picture and Post at Ugly Brother Studios. Previous to here, I was at a company named Asylum Entertainment. It's a legendary company, and when I started there, they were experiencing some kind of explosive growth, right? We had like 9 active series in production, and they just really needed somebody to help them, you know, figure out the facility and figure out like the management of the projects as well. So when I came in, they had 4 Unity, like most of my experience is going to be involved primarily with Avid, Media Composer, and Symphony, and the like. So most of the workflows I'll discuss are involving those products. So they basically had 4 Avid Unities. They had 1 Facilis, and then we had like 5 kind of nearline chassis that were all going through little Mac servers. And it was a mess to deal with, right? Like editors had to go in and they were constantly like just replugging their own systems in the machine room to try to like hook up whatever new projects they were working on. And it was like a 1950s like switchboard operation back there. Things were crashing all the time, and shuttling media on and off of those systems is really difficult. What I needed was, I needed a way to unify all of it. I needed a way to simplify all of those disparate data platforms, right? So I met a sales engineer for Panasas at SMPTE and was kind of like telling him my woes and telling him, you know, what it was I wanted. You know, I wanted to unify the storage situation, and I also wanted to I wanted to find something that was like file system agnostic, right? Because in Unity had its like workspace manager, and then if you went the next step to ISIS at the time, then you needed the client manager, and those two applications couldn't talk to one another. They couldn't exist on the same system at the same time. Plus there was like the way in which you would have to communicate with Facilis, those things couldn't all talk to each other at the same time. And we were just coming off of the heels of Xsan going away and Final Cut Pro 7 going away, which left a lot of facilities having to convert over their entire infrastructure. And I didn't want to run into those problems, right? So I was convinced that Panasas could solve these issues for me. I then went home and like obsessively studied all of the things on the Panasas website, where I ran across these quotes from like CERN and the Department of Defense that made the system seem like it could handle like media and entertainment workflows, if, you know. So we came in and we tried to like perform that if, right? We installed the system, I moved over a bunch of projects to it, and then in that process, I mistakenly reorganized all of the IP addresses of the Blade system. I'm freaking out. Panasas, though, just kind of gently shut us out of the system, reconfigured all of its data pools, and presented everything back to us seamlessly without a single lost file, right? And then it rebuilt itself and gave itself back to us as if there were no problems. That gave me like quite a bit of like relief, as you can imagine. And then we discovered all kinds of other cool things, right? Since we are now on this file system agnostic storage solution, we could then make all of our Avid jobs easier, right? We now had the ability to have like true authentication for users. Users could sign in and only see the projects they were working on rather than everybody else's project as well. And they could like sign on to the whole system. How do I put this? They could sign on to the whole system as if it were just like one item that they were signing into rather than like 4 different items that had to be switched back and forth, right? It did exactly what it said, and it unified the entire situation. And the next benefit that we got from that was like a stabilization, right? I had forgotten that we were constantly having to restart all of these different servers constantly. Once Panasas was installed, it just like stayed up and running, right? The next thing that hit us was like this massive spurt of growth. All of a sudden, we had to double the size of our production. We were running 40 Avids at the time. I had to like move down a block away and take over some other floors in another building with this huge build out. We ended up with like 5 floors across 2 buildings, right? And what I really needed was I still needed everybody to see all of these different projects as if they were in the same space. And Panasas has this like global namespacing, right? Like you just kind of like log in Panasas and Mount Drive, and it shows up as if it's like local storage, right? It behaves as if it's local storage, even though I legitimately have like 2 different Panasas installations in 2 different buildings that were talking to one another across dark fiber. Anyway, I ran with those solutions for quite a while, a couple of years actually. It solved so many issues for me that I then was able to just like start taking it all for granted, right? As you do. I did have some legitimate file system problems, right? NFS, Apple's implementation of NFS is not as good as other implementations of, not as like exacting to the standard as other implementations of NFS. And we ended up with some problems, right? If we ended up with a project that was like really large, bin saving would take a long, long time. Sometimes we would have difficulties like saving the project, right? We'd just get a pinwheel that would like last for minutes. And editors would complain, right? Editors just want to kind of get in and get their work done, and understandably so. And so when we would get these big, big projects with lots of stuff on them, like we would have to do quite a bit of maintenance on the assistant editorial side of things to keep stuff appearing smooth. I had one editor, he's kind of an old timer, you know, in the industry. His name's Gibby, and he's a really good editor, but you know, he's also very dramatic. He sat within earshot of me and was complaining about the save speeds and things of that nature. he doesn't really care about the larger corporate benefits that we're all getting from this, you know? He just cares about his thing. And so I'm calling Panasas and telling them about it. They discuss with me one of the things that had me just initially super excited about Panasas was DirectFlow. DirectFlow for Linux is what was powering kind of all of this HPC computing that was happening on CERN, DoD kind of arena that Panasas played in, right? They told me that that was now ported to Mac OS. I immediately, of course, wanted to be on the beta program and was given like a beta installation of DirectFlow. I had a buddy that was working here, Phil. He's an editor, another old-time editor, but you know, we go way back. And I told Phil that I wanted to try out this new file system on his edit bay. And if he would let me put it on there, I promised him that if everything crashed and burned, that I could have the system re-imaged and back up and running within 15 minutes. So he agreed to let me tinker around in there. I installed the beta of DirectFlow for Mac on his system and just watched it for like a week. It was freaking magic, right? Like all of the kind of issues that I was running into with like file savings and database rebuilding and things like that just kind of like went away on his system. And so he's just loving it, right? Meanwhile, Gibby's just like complaining still, you know? And I'm about to run into like finishing issues. Like I've got to like be out of the facility, off at another facility where we do our onlines. And so I'm going to be away from Ugly Brother. Meanwhile, like editor at Ugly Brother, who's like not super happy, right? So he's in complaining to Phil one day about his system and how he can't stand the saving and this and that. And Phil just tells him like, oh, why don't you just have Alan put DirectFlow on your system? I don't have any of those problems. So then like Gibby comes to me and says like he wants me to install DirectFlow on his system. And I kind of told him I didn't want to, right? Like I don't want him to have some problems with the new system and then, you know, just have more things to be upset about. But he persisted, so I caved. And I told him like, look, I don't know what to do if things go wrong. You're just going to have to jump into another bay, right? Because I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be off at another facility doing online. So I installed it overnight. He started up the next day. And I'm in the online session. And all of a sudden I get these texts, you know. This system is awesome. It's running really well. Thanks for changing it over. Blah, 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 right? I get back to work. And I'm just asking him questions about how it was running. And he said he was being real ginger with it, you know, but that it was running really well. The next day, he said he was going to like put it through its paces, you know. So again, I'm off at online, and then I get this text from Gibby, you know, and he says, let me look it up on my phone real quick. Hello. Dude, this new system is the fastest in Hollywood. I can't break it. I've tried, but I can't. Right? So I'm like, oh, that is awesome. I come back, I ask him what he did. He says, you know, he opened up waveforms on 24 channels across an hour-long show and didn't experience any stutter for the entire edit process. That's pretty impressive. I don't care what file system you're on. So he runs on it for like a week, and I don't experience any problems with those two bays. At the end of that week, I just one night deployed it across the studio, and the next week, literally all of my problems just vaporized. Like everybody was just happily working along. I could sneak into Gibby's bay. I wouldn't even sneak in, just open the door and walk in and stand in the corner. And here he is, this guy who used to constantly complain, just completely immersed in his work. He doesn't even like recognize the fact that I walked in the room. And that's what great technology does, right? Like it gets out of the way. It gets out of the way and it lets creatives do their work, right? Since then, our studio's won 2 Emmys, right? Pretty stoked about that. And I legitimately believe that Panasas is a huge part of that. They built a technology which allows creative teams to do their work at a high level because of the technology and not in spite of it. It just allows them to focus on telling great stories. The technology behind DirectFlow is like super impressive, and David Salek can explain it a hell of a lot better than me. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it. And on to you, Dave.
Thank you, Alan. You've shared really cool stories that come right from the tactile experience you've had with our product. And we're very pleased to support Ugly Brother Studios by honoring you in your Emmy Award-winning achievements, and being able to know that we're a part of what makes that possible makes us very proud as an organization, because ultimately that's what we want to do, is develop cool technology that helps individuals and teams do amazing things with that. Our history as a company is driven by discovery and supporting discovery, whether it's in the development of a new plane or a new technology, or the way that we support racing teams in F1 to be able to make their cars go faster and win races, or in the discovery of cures for diseases, and certainly in the aspect of now the expansion of our technology and use in media and entertainment, and being able to support studios such as yours produce award-winning content. That's exactly why we're in this business. And it comes down to, what is it about our technology that makes that possible? So that's what I'm going to discuss right now, which is, I'll introduce ActiveStor with DirectFlow for Mac, and I'm going to be very simple about it, because I think that one of the challenges with describing how something works is it can become very detailed, and I don't want that to be the experience. Instead, I'd like you to know what are the benefits at a very simple level. So I like to say that imagine if scale-out NAS, network attached storage, which is Ethernet attached storage, imagine if that were fast and easy. It turns out that's possible, and that's what Panasas has made. So we accelerate media and entertainment workflows, and we use DirectFlow as the technology by which we do it. It's a parallel data protocol, DirectFlow, engineered and designed by Panasas. And what it offers is the ability to leverage the simplicity and flexibility of Ethernet in order to be able to deliver a high performance experience for all kinds of workloads. With DirectFlow for Mac, it is the only parallel protocol that is optimized for the Mac OS in the applications that creatives use, whether it's traditional print-based applications such as Illustrator and Photoshop, or the leveraging of Photoshop into motion graphics with After Effects, or the ability to then get right into the meat of creative in video, which is your post-production applications, whether it's Adobe or Avid, as Alan has cited, or even Final Cut Pro. The ability to leverage simple infrastructure instead of the traditional complexity that Alan was describing, which is the way media and entertainment post has been done for the past 15 to 20 years. There are better ways to do it. The challenge is, though, if you want to leverage Ethernet, you traditionally have to go with the protocols that run over Ethernet, which are NFS or SMB. Those protocols often struggle for dealing with mixed workloads that are commonly found in post. What Panasas did is we built on our 15-year legacy of DirectFlow for Linux in high-performance computing, and we engineered a version of it that runs on the Mac OS. When one thinks of scale-out NAS, one thinks of an environment that's going to be challenged with growth. Alan talked about the experience over at Asylum of having to build out their facility and grow it to more than twice its original size, and do that under pressure conditions of existing productions and deadlines, but growing the environment to support twice as many users, because twice as much work was coming into the facility, which meant working across multiple buildings and going into a larger deployment scenario and scaling out your storage environment. This is what scale-out NAS does. It's why I'm a big fan of scale-out NAS. Traditionally, one can look at storage and the expansion of storage as a challenging process, especially with SANs. With a scale-out NAS architecture, you overcome the limitations inherent to SANs. While they are fast, there are LUNs to manage, and there are challenges with scaling the metadata, because SANs are head-based architectures. And scale-out NAS is a clustered architecture. It distributes the process. And with clustering, you get all these awesome benefits. Scalability and ease of management are the main two. So it's ideal as an architecture for medium and large work groups of creatives, whether it's in editorial graphics or media processing. you'd find scale-out NAS to be a very attractive option in the marketplace. But then it comes down to there can be side effects to scale-out NAS, and I'm going to describe those briefly here in this slide. So I'm going to touch on how ActiveStor with DirectFlow for Mac can improve performance and improve results. First of all, scale-out NAS. Imagine a world where storage looks like that cylinder on the left, and it's made up of clustered components. They're all equal. 3 storage servers share the process of presenting a namespace, a place for files to go and users to work collaboratively. So users will connect to a scale-out NAS using a protocol, NFS or SMB, and clients will connect to one storage node of a cluster. And as clients connect to there, they have to read and write data, just like it would be on a traditional SAN as a shared workgroup space. The challenge of a scale-out NAS is, while it is very elastic and easy to scale, that elasticity comes with a design compromise, which is the fact that data parity is calculated on storage, and it's calculated per file. What that means is the first Mac will write to a node of a cluster, and then the file gets parity calculated for it on the fly, and then all the bits are distributed across all the nodes of the cluster. That process will slow down performance. The benefits of a clustered scale-out NAS are the users can connect to different nodes of the cluster, and you get a very balanced I/O profile until such time as clients overload one node of the cluster. And then you can have this thing called hotspots. The 2 main aspects to know about a clustered scale-out NAS is that it is very easy to manage and scale, and users can connect to it using built-in protocols. That's awesome. The challenge is that the performance is not as good as SAN, and it's admittedly that way. So it's ideal for offline workflows or creative editorial workflows where there is no expectation of high performance, and instead there's maybe an expectation of high availability to stage data, and you don't have to worry about it going offline. And if you need to grow it from 100 terabytes to 200, you can easily do that with scale-out NAS, but it does not offer high performance. There are ways to overcome this, and that's what Panasas has engineered. So with DirectFlow, it's our protocol that we put onto the Mac, and we've traditionally done it always for Linux platforms for the past 15 years. You get this protocol that leverages the host CPU to perform the parity calculation. We calculate the parity per file. So the aspect of a scale-out NAS, what you see here is Panasas storage nodes in the bottom right, is that all those nodes make up the namespace. And the more nodes you add, the larger the namespace becomes and the faster it gets. But we take the parity calculation, which inhibits performance, we move that to the client, and we leverage the libraries built within the CPU of Intel inside of every Mac, so that that process of calculating parity goes very fast, and it consumes very little CPU resources. Because inside every Intel CPU that you buy today, in any computer that you purchase, there are libraries on that Intel CPU to calculate parity. We use those libraries to make DirectFlow build the parity fast on the client side, so storage doesn't have to worry about it. And then we write to multiple storage nodes at once. That's awesome because that's parallelism. And when multiple clients do that, all the nodes are serviced to all the clients for all the I/O, and you do not get hotspots. You get this very even load, and when parity is calculated by the client, the performance is very fast. It feels almost SAN-like. So what you get is a high performance experience. And that works for all kinds of files, whether they are large files or small files, large sequential files or small random files. And it's common in post that you get these mixed workloads. So what is the experience for users? Ultimately, it's this. Our media and entertainment customers are impressed by DirectFlow for Mac. As you heard Alan share, all these legacy problems just went away. The storage just became faster. The applications felt snappy, as if the users were working with local data, and all the delays within the applications vanished. So the concerns that creatives had over working with their applications and shared storage, those concerns vanished. They went away. And what that means is, so far, 3 of our customers have been using DirectFlow for Mac, and it started first with Ugly Brother Studios, and that was Alan's experience that he shared. Legendary Pictures, which owns Asylum, you heard that's where Alan initially started, and they've cut over their entirely DirectFlow for Mac across more than 100 edit suites. And recently, over the past month, our customer Turner Studios has also deployed DirectFlow for Mac, and they found that It's solved all their problems they had with traditional protocols, being NFS. And now they're very excited to figure out how to deploy it across all of their workstations where they have DirectFlow for Mac. At this point, it's time for us to be able to find out, first of all, from our webinar manager, Bill, if we've had any questions come in.
Thanks, David. Yes, we actually do have a couple questions. Let me see. The first one is, how does Panasas support Avid workflows?
Today, we partner with a couple of different middleware vendors that make a software tool that supports Panasas for being able to work with Avid. One of those original tools was the SandFusion software technology, which is a cool little application that you install on every Mac, and it allows client-side access to storage. There is no server layer involved. And when you deploy this technology, it's been used at Asylum, it's been used at Ugly Brother. This very cool technology allows users to be able to have the bin locking support to be able to work with Panasas storage. Recently, though, Alan, there's another technology that you tried. I was hoping you might be able to share your experience with it.
Yeah, it's a technology by a company in the UK called ActiveStor. The name of the technology is called Mimic, right? And Mimic runs on your system, and it allows like direct access to Panasas workspaces, right? So the awesome component there is like if you're on like an Active Directory scenario and you build auto mounts, you can legitimately have an edit system that just, when it starts up, mounts all of the workspaces with correct permissions and doesn't require any kind of like client login to like mount workspaces, right? It just makes the whole thing kind of go zippier. So I'm really excited about that technology.
Yeah, another aspect you mentioned, I recall, Alan, was that it eliminated the concept of virtual volumes. It made Panasas volumes directly addressable by the Avid clients. It really simplified the way that you had to present the Panasas storage and the various volumes to the Avid users. So that was also another exciting benefit that was a takeaway from my end with the ActiveStor Mimic technology. One of our general approaches with regard to supporting Avid is we don't want to get in the way of really cool ideas that are happening in the marketplace. We like the kind of open source development approach toward software development. It's part of Panasas' legacy in the Unix space, is being a strong supporter of open source software tools that are developed and leverage the open source marketplace of technologies to be able to do these things. ActiveStor came up with a very cool approach that offers a commercially backed version of the Mimic technology. So there is an organization that you can call and get support from. And so far, they've been supporting a variety of storage platforms. We're very happy to work with them to support Avid workspaces and Avid bin locking capabilities. Bill, are there other questions?
Yes, there's a couple more. Has Panasas tested the latest releases of Adobe Premiere Pro and FCPX?
Yes. So one of the things that Panasas has done is we've built up a media and entertainment business practice, and we are a Adobe technology partner. So we work very closely with Adobe to validate the latest releases that they offer, including Adobe Premiere Pro for Creative Cloud 2017 release, and we validated that as a supported release, and it actually is used by customers today with Panasas. In addition, we've done internal development and validation of Apple FCPX latest release, and the latest 10 series is working very well with Panasas ActiveStor. A lot of that has to do with the fact that DirectFlow for Mac is very good at supporting mixed I/O patterns, which are very common in FCPX workloads because it's a database-based video editor application. It functions entirely differently than Avid does. And while Adobe Premiere Pro Creative Cloud 2017 edition is somewhat similar, FCPX is very unique in the way that it handles I/O for large ProRes files that are common to edit workflows. So we work with the databases and with the edit application on the FCPX side very well. It's been a good validation effort. So we're good on all those applications so far.
Great. And one more's come in. Can you tell us about the demo at NAB and what did you show?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have a video that we shot at the NAB show, and it does a better job at showing the contents of the demo than anything I could explain. Let's roll the video.
Hello, my name is David Salek, CTO for Media and Entertainment at Panasas, and I'm here to demonstrate why ActiveStor with DirectFlow for Mac is the fastest in Hollywood. We're going to accomplish this with a workflow demonstration that includes search and organization tools, working collaboratively with the two most powerful edit suites that are available today. And we're going to close this demonstration with the ability to show real-time transcoding happening for delivery. So, we're going to start the demo by explaining how ActiveStor with DirectFlow for Mac works. And as illustrated right here, this is an example of what clustered scale-out NAS is able to do. First of all, I'm a big fan of clustered scale-out NAS. You get all this elasticity and scalability, but we have users that need more performance. So what we're illustrating here is when users connect using traditional scale-out NAS, users have a one-to-one connection to their storage. Over here, with DirectFlow, we show one-to-many, the parallelism concept, which is so powerful to DirectFlow. Next stage of the demonstration is going to focus on Premiere Pro itself. So in this application toolset, what we want to demonstrate is how you're going to have a fantastic editorial experience on creative content by focusing on the process of creativity, because the tool is going to feel very fluid and fast as you move through the various stages of creative editorial.
Hi, I'm Stephen Birch with Trilogy Visual Media, and I'm here demoing the Panasas ActiveStor with DirectFlow for Mac in a Premiere Pro environment. So what I've tried to do is create a sequence that really stresses out the box. I have several Blackmagic 4K files, red RAW files, some HD. I threw just about everything I could at it to try and stress the system. And I'm finding that no matter what I do throw at it, I'm able to scrub, play, make creative editing decisions without worrying about it slowing down. And how that translates for us back at Trilogy is that the guys aren't having to copy larger source files to their local machines, and we're able to keep everything central and keep everything collaborative and going. So yeah, it works. I'm really happy with it.
Continuing the demonstration, we're going to focus on ActiveStor with DirectFlow for Mac supporting the next edit suite application, Avid Media Composer. In this demonstration, we're going to focus on the ability to move and organize clips in the timeline in a very fluid fashion, in addition to focusing on lots of audio elements.
Hi, my name is Joe Lewis. I'm an Avid editor by trade. I'm here demoing the Panasas ActiveStor DirectFlow for Mac. What is answering the pain problem for me is in this whole world of 2K and 4K, current solutions bog down the timeline and bog down effects when they fly in, and audio edits and all that. It just makes the timeline go slower. My creativity just gets bogged down and goes out the window. So with ActiveStor, with DirectFlow, I'm able to now actually move the timeline seamlessly and right doing what I want it to do. I have taxed the timeline. I have 6 tracks, or actually 14 tracks of video, 2K video, put boxes on it, and it's actually moving quite impressively fast, ridiculously, stupidly fast, and which I can't get with any other solution. The other is audio tracks. So with audio, you have the small files. In typical other storage units, it bogs down as well. But I have 48 tracks of audio here and all the video, and I'm able to hit play and do whatever I want to do without any hitch in the sequence. So I'm impressed.
Concluding the demonstration, we're going to work with AWS Elemental, which is a high-performance transcoding platform, Linux-based. So ActiveStor with DirectFlow for Linux is going to show a lot of high-performance encoding and transcoding, converting one native format from ProRes on Premiere or DNX on Avid into H.264 multi-format encoding faster than real time.
Great. David, there's no more questions.
Fantastic. Well, I'd first of all like to wrap up this presentation by thanking Ellen Dial, Senior Vice President for Picture and Post over at Ugly Brother Studios. Ellen, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your thoughts about the Panasas experience.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it. if anybody out there has any questions or whatever, you just find me and hit me up. I've become kind of an advocate for this thing.
We appreciate your time, Alan, and we appreciate the time of everybody that's attended. So thank you very much. This is the end of our presentation. We hope everybody has a great day.